Loraine, thanks for talking to me today. Today's conversation is going to be part of the learning for our Addressing Bullying and Harassment community of practice. So thank you for that. As you know, earlier this year, TSSA, we launched our Going Beyond program, and that's designed to both learn about issues of significance to our members, but also identify pathways into practical actions that we can take to address things like bullying and harassment, etc. So thanks for talking with me today. To begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the experience that you've had leading change in organisations?
Well, thank you very much, Nadine, for inviting me to participate in this event. And I wish that I could have been with you in person. So I've been at Network Rail for 8 years as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And in inclusion is a massive change project. It's about creating environments in which people can flourish, they can be themselves, they are respected, removing any barriers or impediments to people's progress, enhancing opportunities to be creative and innovative in the services that you provide or the ways that you interact with people, and using that diversity really to enhance your products, your thinkings, your behaviour. Yeah, so it is in all of the organisations I've worked with a massive change project.
All right, okay, thanks for that. And in your perspective, why is it important for organisations to deal with bullying and harassment, and what is the cost of not dealing with it?
So it's really important that organisations create environments in which people can be themselves and can flourish. And one of the kind of debilitating effects of bullying and harassment is that people aren't able to work to their full optimum. Therefore, their capacity is diminished, and you end up losing resources that you've kind of invested in if those environments persist. So there's the kind of financial kind of loss in terms of cost of, you know, you've paid to appoint somebody, you've invested in their capacity to deliver their job. But I think more importantly, the kind of psychological cost in terms of the individual, the kind of debilitating effect that bullying and harassment has on individuals and the environment. So you get cues from your environment about the way that things are done around here. And so to have bullying and harassment persist in your environment will mean that people will not be operating at the best that they can be. Mm-hmm. And that will eventually impact on your productivity, be it, you know, sickness absence or people withholding work that they would do if the environment was conducive to working at your best. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I guess you'd also, I'm sure you'd agree, there's an element of when you create a positive and inclusive environment, it also helps attract people into your business, doesn't it?
Without a shadow of a doubt, I can often quote the Field of Dreams analogy. If you build it, they will come. So, you know, thinking about your reputation, thinking about your values, thinking about actually you want to attract the best possible talent, then you would really want to eradicate, if not eliminate, you know, the instances of those things that have an adverse effect on your reputation.
Right, excellent. And in your experience, what employer actions and initiatives have the greatest impact to reduce or end bullying and harassment?
So I think it stems from the values, really. So those organisations that have very clear values and then make those values live, create an environment in which bullying and harassment is not acceptable. So that can lead to a fantastic zero tolerance of bullying and harassment. So I think for me, those organisations that are very clear about their values and live out those values are really well adept at managing any instances of inappropriate behaviour. I think alongside that is creating an environment in which people feel confident that they can speak up and speak out, and that they know where those mechanisms are. And that's really important, and it has to be reiterated and repeated and made very visible and very vocal. And I think that then opportunities that your processes then follow through. So there's one thing, you say what you want to be as an organisation, you behave in those ways that manifest those behaviours. People are seeing that, and then if there are instances, you can see the trajectory of how those instances are managed, and your processes identify them and deal with them sharply, quickly, and effectively, so that it doesn't permeate the environment. And that there could be several mechanisms, Nadine. It could be informal. So on occasions, the perpetrator is not aware of how their behaviour has landed or impacted individuals. So that might be a slight aside that helps, or it might be formal processes. But either way, those processes have to be fairly rigorous and transparent.
Right. Okay. And the work that you're doing specifically in diversity and inclusion matters, that sits alongside those processes, doesn't it? In terms of trying to encourage people to be themselves at work and encourage their understanding and allyship.
Yeah, I think in terms of trying to promote diversity and inclusion and create an environment in which we're open, more diverse, and more inclusive, then you have to have those parallel systems that underpin that says, right, if we see behaviours which counter that, then we need to address them. I think sometimes organisations are not consistent, and I think sometimes people don't have the same antennae, so they don't register the behaviours as quickly as one would hope. Nevertheless, I think it's really, really important that you tie those two things clearly together, the underpinnings. You can't have an inclusive environment and have bullying and harassment. It's complete anathema.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess that leads on to thinking about what are some of the challenges organisations face in implementing those initiatives and addressing bullying and harassment. What are some of the things that make it difficult to go from making that decision to being a bully-free workplace?
So I touched on it a little bit. One of it is around, I guess, living out your values and the confidence of people that what you say is actually what you mean. So, you know, we say we're a zero tolerance organisation, yet I can point to different instances will create a lack of confidence in individuals to speak up and speak out. So that's a really important facet of any organisation, that consistency of line of sight. This is what we say, this is what we do, this is how we act, and it is really consistent. I think there needs to be a kind of openness about what people understand by bullying and what that means, and creating an environment which allows people to challenge in a constructive way. You know, that behaviour might land, might be felt as being bullying. So that it gives you an opportunity to intervene really quickly. So I think that's what we're challenged with, because there's so many different perceptions of what bullying and harassment is. It can sometimes make it feel amorphous, and because the perpetrators, if they're less conscious of their behaviour, may not recognise it. That creates a bit of a tension. So, So creating an environment in which you've got some really clear parameters about what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable creates a better environment. And again, as organisations, we're not always adept at doing that. So creating confidence, creating a common understanding about what bullying and harassment means, creating a clear understanding of what the escalation is. Again, that sometimes can be really opaque. And because it's opaque, that makes it difficult for individuals to navigate, and that can also be a challenge. And I think if you think about it in terms of being a recipient of bullying and harassment, if you're not confident in the environment that's surrounding, or you don't know where to go, then it's something that people will kind of bear in silence, and so that creates the challenge. So again, organisations need to be really clear about what the mechanisms are, both informal and formal, and point people into the direction. You know, have you got a confidential speak out line? Have you got diversity and inclusion champions? Have you got trade union reps? You know, make all of those support mechanisms really, really visible, so that people know what the kind of routes to escalation are, should they ever want to, call out those inappropriate behaviours. So those are the things that I think create challenges for organisations, because fundamentally we're not necessarily consistent about how they're applied, or they're not necessarily as visible as we would want them to be. So, one bit might know of it and another bit because, well, I don't really have no clue what to do.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would say, Nadine, is about the confidence of the environment. So, do I know what to do if I witness bullying and harassment? And therefore, do I feel confident enough to intervene, or to draw somebody to one side to check on how they are, or to provide support? And again, that's not something that I think we do consistently.
Right. Yeah, I think it's not an easy issue to tackle, and that's why certainly as a union we're trying to create more of these spaces to discuss those very things, the challenges that are faced, and how we can overcome them to make sure that we are achieving the inclusive workplaces we want. Is there a benefit of addressing bullying and harassment as an industry together, not just as an independent employer? And if so, what do you think the role of trade unions might be also in that?
So I think there's absolute benefit in us, coalescing our efforts. You all know, I think I score highly on the collaborative chart, but I think it's because that creates a common understanding of what we're talking about, what we expect of our colleagues and our environment, and how to manage it. And we've had, I think, fitful instances where we've tried to do that as an industry, and I think where we've kind of not been as successful as we could be is because we've not been consistent and repeated those messages continually throughout. So we've had small campaigns, poster campaigns, which are kind of fitful, but I think if we took a longer view and kind of had a more regular reiteration of it, I think that would be much stronger. And I think trade unions have a fundamental role to play in that, both in helping to share the message, but also identifying areas that we need to address better, and to provide support to people who might be experiencing bullying and harassment, and also to help with some of the communication mechanisms. So for me, it's, we're a fantastically complex sector, the rail industry, and the more that we can work together on issues like bullying and harassment and promoting diversity and inclusion, for me, the better it is for us.
Yeah, I would. I spoke to someone earlier this week, actually, who from New Zealand, and we were talking about restorative practice, and he was saying how in schools there is quite a strong understanding now for many years of what restorative practice is, and so young people are exiting schools and going into the workplace and seeing something different, and are demanding more. And I think that when you apply that to the industry, you can see that there's a lot of people that move between companies, and if there's a common understanding that behaviours are like this or should be like that, or inclusion means this, not that, that will help the industry grow and flourish and retain people.
Absolutely, and to your point earlier, Nadine, it's a source of attraction, because we kind of recycle ourselves in our industry. We become ambassadors, and we are ambassadors for the good as well as for the stuff that's not so good. So I think the more that we can have that common understanding about the standards that we expect of each other, and also of our passengers, in terms of, we've just recently had a film on hate crimes on our infrastructure. So it's a common message that we want to kind of get across. It doesn't matter where you are in our industry, those behaviours won't be tolerated.
Great. Well, one final thing, Loraine. What advice would you give to anyone who wants to see change in their workplace? What can they do as an individual?
Oh, that's fantastic. I guess I guess it's where your site, do something where you are. So, in your immediate sphere of influence, you can become a trade union rep, can become a diversity and inclusion champion, you can join employee network, you can speak up where you find things inappropriate. You can also praise the good practice, so be role models for things that you want to extol and you want to see within our organisation. And we all have, I think, a responsibility. I said earlier that we are the ambassador organisation and of our industry. So I take that really, very seriously. Every time we present ourselves, we are giving an image of what we are as an industry. So I think that we should take that really seriously and do what we can do within our spheres of influence.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having this conversation with me today, Loraine. I think our community of practice will be very grateful to hear from you on those matters. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Nadine. Really appreciate the opportunity.